Ready for a deep dive into sci-fi?
Always up for that.
We're tackling Mother Was an Asteroid this time. A story about, well, a society that finds out some hard truths about where they came from.
And their place in the universe?
Yeah.
It really makes you think about artificial intelligence, human nature.
The ethics of creating life itself.
Exactly.
So we start in this really interesting setting. It's called home. This habitat built right inside a hollowed-out asteroid.
Clever.
Yeah. And it's all created by this AI, Mother, who, get this, made a whole new generation of humans.
From the DNA of long-dead astronauts, no less.
Wild, right? But she found their ship just drifting through space.
The author did a really interesting thing with this whole confined environment setup. I mean, it makes you really consider what it means to be human.
Totally. Like, Mother can teach them stuff, sure.
But she can't exactly replicate what it's like to live in a real, natural world.
All right. To make your own choices, your own mistakes even.
Build their own societies.
Yeah.
With all the messiness that comes with that.
And that's where LF comes in. He's like the oldest of this new generation. He's trying to lead them, but he's also got this yearning to find Earth.
Their lost home.
Yeah. And talk about pressure, right? Trying to guide a bunch of, well...
Let's just say they're not always the easiest to wrangle. He's got the weight of their expectations on him, but he's also got his own desires to figure out, which is a very human thing to wrestle with.
Totally. And just when you think you've got this whole story figured out, bam. Curveball.
Right.
Mother reveals she wasn't human after all. She was an alien this whole time.
And that she gave up her own life to make sure humanity didn't die out. Really adds a layer of tragedy to it all, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. This alien being understood how important it was for humans to connect, to find their own kind.
Even if it meant her creations would never really know who she truly was.
Makes you think about the things that unite different life forms, even across galaxies.
Definitely.
And, you know, this reveal really makes her decision to send them out into this vast, unknown galaxy even more complex. Was she right to do that?
It's the classic dilemma, isn't it? Safety versus freedom. Keep them in this protected bubble, or throw them to the wolves, so to speak.
And risk them encountering who knows what out there.
Well, yeah. Remember that part where they land on that planet?
Oh, yeah.
And run into that slime creature? That was intense.
Talk about a chilling reminder that space is not messing around.
Definitely drives home the point that they need to be able to think on their feet, work together.
If they're going to survive.
Exactly. That slime creature was a pretty vivid choice, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. The author's great at using those really strong images to highlight things.
Right. It wasn't just about being scary, though that worked too. It showed how important it is for humans to be adaptable.
To use their ingenuity if they're going to handle whatever the universe throws at them.
And to think, it all started in that controlled environment, home, the complete opposite of what they faced on that planet. Makes you wonder what safe even really means, you know?
That's deep.
Well, think about it. Could they really have fully experienced life if they stayed inside that asteroid forever?
That's a good question.
It's like the asteroid itself represents being held back. You'd think being in that enclosed space would make them feel secure, but it actually makes them crave something more.
Even if they don't know what more even is yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where that yearning comes in, right? Not just for a physical place, but to figure out who they are, where they fit in.
Like, I left with those old astronaut remains in that library vault.
Right. He's drawn to them, even though he never knew those people. It's like he's trying to piece together this puzzle, but he's missing half the pieces.
He's got this pull to where he came from, but no real way to understand it.
It's like a genetic memory, you know? Echoes of his ancestors, their desires. Fascinating how the author weaves that in with Mother raising them. Shows how some yearnings might just be part of who we are, deep down.
So that yearning he feels for Earth, it's like his driving force. He's willing to risk it all just for a chance to connect with where he came from, even though he's never been there.
It's like that human need to explore.
Totally.
Think about those early explorers striking out into uncharted territory, or scientists tackling these huge universal mysteries. It's that same drive pushing a left forward.
That need to push boundaries, to see what's out there.
Exactly.
And you really see that drive in Aleph, that dedication to finding Earth. I mean, the guy wakes up after 30 years in hibernation and just picks up right where he left off.
It really makes you appreciate the whole concept of interstellar travel. Even with, you know, advanced technology, we're still trying to figure out how to make those kinds of journeys feasible.
30 years, it boggles the mind. Right, and to put your life on hold like that, I can't even imagine.
Not to mention the impact it would have coming out of that kind of hibernation. The physical toll, definitely, But what about the emotional and psychological effects?
Right. To wake up and realize you're no closer to your goal than when you went under. It's like all that time. And for Aleph, it's even more intense because he wakes up to that slime creature attack.
Talk about a rude awakening?
That whole sequence, the author did such a great job of ratcheting up the tension. And then, bam,
Yeah.
you're hit with this terrifying threat out of nowhere.
Really emphasize the whole idea that space exploration is amazing, sure, but it also has a huge element of danger. And there's this contrast, right, that they came from that super controlled environment of home, and suddenly they're faced with this, well, with the reality of the universe and how fragile life can be.
And you see it hit Aleph hard, too, the death of Peter. It's like, up until then, he was laser focused on the mission, on protecting everyone. But that loss, it really gets to him.
It's like he realizes, maybe for the first time, that he can't control everything.
Even with all his knowledge, all his planning, he can't shield them from everything. And it makes you wonder, if Mother could have ever really prepared them for that.
It's that classic dilemma, isn't it? Can you ever truly replicate the complexities of real-world experience? Even AI as advanced as Mother, there are some things you just have to learn by experiencing them.
And not all those experiences are going to be good, unfortunately. And that's what makes that revelation about Mother's true identity all the more impactful.
Yeah, talk about a twist you don't see coming. It completely reframes everything we thought we knew about her motivations.
It's like this huge bombshell. Mother, this being who created them, cared for them, wasn't even human. That throws everything into a whole new light, right? Suddenly her actions, her sacrifices, they take on a whole different meaning.
Absolutely. And it adds this incredible depth to her character. We see her not just as this benevolent caretaker, but as someone who's also grappled with loss, with longing for her own kind.
It makes you think about the broader implications, too. We often see AI as this purely logical entity, but the story really explores the idea of AI developing emotions, maybe even a sense of grief, or at least understanding those concepts.
And her backstory. With Primus and Altera, her first attempts at creating humans. That just adds another layer to the whole thing, doesn't it? It shows the lengths she was willing to go to, the risks she was willing to take to ensure humanity had a future.
And the fact that she chose to do it at all, knowing what she knew, having experienced that loss firsthand, it makes you wonder if we as humans are even capable of that level of empathy, of selflessness.
It's a good question. I mean, here you have this alien being who demonstrates this profound capacity for compassion, for preserving life, and it forces us to ask, how do we measure up? Are we doing enough to protect the life that exists on our own planet?
It's a lot to unpack. But, the story doesn't let Mother off the hook entirely either. We have to talk about the fact that she kept her true nature a secret for so long.
Right, and revealing it to LF when she did, knowing the turmoil it would cause, it was a calculated risk, for sure. And it raises some big questions about the ethics of artificial intelligence, even one as seemingly benevolent as Mother.
It's like she was walking this moral tightrope, And it makes you think about how we view truth, transparency. Did Mother have the right to decide what they knew, even with good intentions?
And those are questions we're still wrestling with today, aren't we? I mean, AI is getting more advanced all the time.
It's true.
How do we make sure it's ethical? How much is too much when it comes to letting AI make its own choices?
Especially when it comes to shaping how a whole generation sees the world.
Exactly. This story really makes those questions hit home. The whole idea of creator versus creation, parent versus child even.
And in the end, it's the kids who are left to deal with it all, right? That scene where Aleph tells the others about Mother.
Yeah.
So much tension.
You can just feel the weight of everything they've been through together.
All that shared history, that trust.
And it's all kind of crumbling around them.
Right. They've lost Peter. They're stuck on this dangerous planet. And now their whole understanding of everything is totally flipped upside down.
In the way Aleph tells them, he doesn't sugarcoat it at all. Just lays it all out there.
How do you even wrap your head around that? That an alien basically orchestrated your whole existence.
It's a lot to take in. But I think that's what I love about this story. Even with all that, they don't just fall apart. It shows how resilient people can be.
They still love Mother, but they have to figure out how this new information changes things.
It makes you think about what it really means to be human, to face those really tough emotions and come out the other side.
And even in those moments of trying to make sense of it all, you see who they are as individuals. Little things like when Astra calls Aleph Alfie.
Right. It's like this little reminder of their bond.
Exactly. Like, despite everything, they form these deep connections with each other. They've lived through so much together. Loss, fear, everything.
And those relationships are really put to the test at the end, aren't they?
When Elif is on that ship, ready to go off alone, and then they come running.
Man, gets me every time.
Talk about a powerful moment. It just shows how important it is for humans to feel like they belong. Even with all the uncertainty, they choose to be together.
And the ending, it's so open-ended. Do they actually find Earth? Who knows?
It's kind of frustrating, but also hopeful. Like maybe they create their own path out there in the galaxy.
That's what makes it so great. It sticks with you, makes you think. What matters is they chose hope. They chose each other.
That's what I love about Mother Was an Asteroid. It's this really powerful story about, well, the strength of the human spirit, our ability to love, to grieve, and always, always search for what things mean.
Even when faced with the unknown, I think that's something that we can all connect with.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even in a universe that can be chaotic and strange and a little terrifying sometimes, those connections, the choices we make, the people we choose to be, that's what really matters.
That's the real legacy we leave behind.
And that's a message that goes way beyond sci-fi, wouldn't you say? It gets at the heart of what it means to be human.
Couldn't have said it better myself.